Okay, we are live streaming. I'm going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to remind council and municipal staff that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. All council meetings are also recorded. Recordings will be available to the public on the township's YouTube account. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is restricted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is held electronically under Bylaw 2020-70 to amend Procedural Bylaw 2018-117, pursuant to Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. Okay, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda. We have an addition to the agenda today under 8.1.7. We have a letter from Dr. Malinowski, local planning leads of the COVID-19 vaccination. Dated March 2nd, 2021. So with that addition, the recommendation is that the council and committee agenda for Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 be approved as amended. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this morning?
None.
Okay, seeing none.
None here.
We will move into our council and committee portion of the meeting. All recommendations from the standing committees are recommendations to council and are pending the approval of council at a subsequent meeting. Our first section this morning is operations, roads, and waste management, and I will turn it over to Chair Bromwich.
Thank you, Mayor Love. We have only one recommendation here, but we have 4 items on our agenda. I'm wondering if, there's Mike now. I guess, Mike, you're representing, oh, there's Hillary. Okay, thanks, Hillary. The first one, 6.11, hazardous waste events for 2021. Fairly self-explanatory, very successful initiative that we do each year. And this is you have all the information there. Is there something you'd like to add to this at all, Hillary, or just allow us to proceed with the recommendation?
So first of all, I just put my headphones on for the first time. Can you guys hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So good morning. So again, same as last year, BLR is interested in joining the joint hazardous waste event at Yard 2 this year, and it's we're glad it's significant cost savings when they join. So I tried to get ahead. That seems to be all over the place this year with COVID, and spots are being taken up pretty quickly. So I went ahead and booked 2 events, July 17th for the joint hazardous waste event and August 21st for Madawaska Valley residents. So there's a recommendation attached, and I even went ahead and did the calendar, the ad, so we can get that out ASAP. As soon as I get the recommendation, then I'll follow up with BLR, and they can get it on their website and advertise. And it'll be in the papers. It's a very good event, and the recommendation is attached.
Thank you, Hillary. Maybe I can get Sue to read the recommendation and we can discuss it further.
Yes, through the chair, the direction is given to staff to initiate 2 household hazardous waste events in 2021 with dates to be determined on the availability of the service provider, and that $33,000 be added to the 2021 waste disposal budget 151217704009 for household hazardous waste day.
I also move that. Could I have a seconder, please? To Mark Wilmer, seconded. Any discussion by council? I see none. All in favor? And that is passed. Thank you. Okay, let me get my paperwork here. Item 6.1.2, we have a request direction to staff for the formation of a working group for waste management in our township. This is Amanda. Amanda put this forward. Would you like to speak on this, Amanda, at all, or like a little history on?
Sure.
I see staff felt the discussions would be best suited with a working group. So maybe you could talk to us.
Yeah. So just when we're talking about budget every year, we notice that there's some matters that require some discussion. There have been questions from the community about setting up a multi-residential curbside rate. Currently, we have residential, small, medium, large, and IC&I for curbside pickup. There's also, we've had some discussion about curbside pickup for commercial businesses and any associated costs. So like for cardboard pickup that we provide to them. We have a couple of agreements or alternative rates that are in place with some businesses in the community that were established by former councils, and we would like some attention brought to that. And then I think it's important to discuss the new blue box rules that will come into effect and how it'll affect our curbside garbage and recycling pickup. And it's a lot of information that needs to be discussed. And it requires finance, the CAO, operations department to all get involved. So we thought that maybe if we just establish a working group with 2 members of council to then provide some information to committee with maybe some recommendations if we feel anything needs to be changed, that this might be the appropriate path to move forward to clear up some of these matters.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, waste is a very expensive portion of our budget each year. Mm-hmm. It's not like we haven't had working groups on this since the beginning of time. I personally, back in Sherwood, Jones and Bernard's days, was on 2 PLC groups for 2 years. Established the actual 3R program through Renfrew County at the time with a 22 municipalities. So we have a lot of background. Is there any counselors here that would like to volunteer to be on this working group? We need 2, so we don't have a quorum. Mark, would you like to be a part of that? I would just leave it open to the other counselors instead of me grabbing the position right off the hop. I don't want to look like I'm biased or anything. But I'll go along with that if I could be the second counselor on that. It's kind of directly involves our committee, so I would be welcome to join that. And you could set a time, Amanda, when things are safe. We could be nice to do it in person inside the council chamber instead of Zooming it. Get a better, quicker response from each other. So
certainly,
we'll leave it up to you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't think I have to put a resolution on the table, do I, Mayor Love? I don't. Just direct
I think it would be good just to acknowledge the 2 members of council who will be working on the working group. So I think there should be a resolution just to that effect.
Maybe Sue, you could draft something up quickly for us if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, I believe Councillor Poplinski has his hand up as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ernie. Thank you.
I have a question, actually, Mr. Chair. This study group, will it be dealing also with an in-depth regarding the blue box situation? And
precisely.
Are we going to be getting some information down soon? I think there was supposed to be something coming out in March.
That's part of the working group. I think that's probably one of our stronger points to be addressed is the blue box program. It's going to affect us all very much, and I think we have to look into it. So we'll get as much information as we can in March through the government to present at this time, and you'll be kept in the loop if you like, Ernie, because I know you're very concerned about it, and as we all should be.
Well, if I may, I think it's something that's going to take a lot of, we don't know exactly what's coming down. One thing doesn't suit everybody, so that I'm sure there's going to be some things that'll specifically affect us greatly. And so I think this is something that's going to take a lot of work, and I think we just have to be prepared for it. So that's all. And I'm more than happy to do my share and help out, but I think we need to be informed as soon as possible. It's great to form the committee, but we certainly need to know what we're going to be dealing with. So thank you.
Thank you. And to you, Mayor Love?
Yes, so I think what Councillor Poplinski has mentioned is a much larger issue than what I anticipate Amanda was hoping for. Certainly, as he stated, we don't know yet exactly what the details are going to be in regards to the transition of the Blue Box program. At this point, based on some discussions that Amanda has had with Hillary and myself, we've just identified that there is a request for a multi-res rate for curbside pickup. And there are a couple of agreements, historical agreements that previous councils have made with individual businesses that should be reviewed and considered. I think one of them doesn't even offer an increase in the rate. The rate has stayed the same. So this is a very small subsection of the much larger topic that Councillor Poplinski is referring to. And I think at this point, if we could just focus on this working group, starting with those items we know about, we have the information, and that group can then have that discussion and make some recommendations back to committee. Then if there's a desire to, and there's more information after, we get into March from the government about the transition of Blue Box, there's an opportunity then to consider whether that group wants to continue and pursue that much more heavy duty topic. But at the moment, I know staff is looking for some ideas and input to resolve some minor local issues that we have. So with that understanding, I think that's the key reason we're striking this group, is to just please look at the local issues and come back with some recommendations on how to resolve any discrepancies we have. Then if council wishes to strike a group to get in depth into the Blue Box transition, I think that's something we could do later. It is very important, but at the moment I understand if we could focus in on the local issues, that would be very helpful to be able to give direction to staff, hopefully for this budget year, and if not, at least for next budget year.
Yeah, we can only do so much as a working group, and we don't have a daily meeting for the next 2 months on anything. So you're right. We have an awful lot of background on requests that have been made over the years for multi-residential pickup. We can't, I don't know if we can entertain a township-wide pickup program, because that's always been put down. But to you, Mayor Love?
Again, Chair, I'd suggest that's a much larger issue than what staff is looking for here. So at the moment, if we could focus in on what's the needs of staff are in terms of some clarification and some direction and some options for specific local issues, that would be great. Should council wish to pursue any discussion about that much larger issue, for example, curbside pickup throughout the municipality, or as Councillor Poplinski mentioned, the very important Blue Box transition and what that's going to look like, I think that's something we can do after these minor issues are addressed. And that may have not been the specific interest of those who are stepping up for this specific committee. So perhaps Councillor Poplinski would rather be engaged in that further. For example, I'm not volunteering you, sir. I'm just saying, let's come back to council and ask for those much larger issues if there are members who are interested in pursuing some work on that.
Okay, what I'll do now is I'll just let staff set the agenda, because they're the ones that are concerned about this. They want to move along with it. So the working group, I'll allow the staff to set the timetable, set up the meetings, bring the issues to the table that they think they're necessary, the priority issue here. And the larger issues we'll leave for another group to work on, okay? If it, maybe even council. So would you do that recommendation for me, Sue? Thank you.
Yes, if I may, through the chair, that a working group be established to discuss curbside pickup service delivery, reviewing rates in existing services and agreements for commercial businesses, and that members of that group include the operations manager, the operations supervisor, CAO clerk, treasurer, deputy treasurer, Councillor Bromwich, and Councillor Wilmer, starting in June, and that recommendations be brought forward for council consideration and updates.
Also move that. Could I have a seconder, please? Mr. Poplinski, thank you. Any further discussion on this? As to you, Mayor Love?
Just a quick question, why starting in June? Is that a staff request?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted clarification. So we won't have this information for this year's budget.
That's correct. We're
That's what
hoping
I
to
wanted
have
to
everything
clarify.
established for 2022.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please have a vote on that? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you very much. Let me get my paperwork here. Item 6.1.3, budget to actual roads and waste management of February the 25th. And everybody has that in front of them, hopefully, and has a chance to read it. If I can find mine. Would you like to mention anything on this that comes out to your mind, Hillary? It's pretty self-explanatory. Is there any items in there that require a discussion? It's just for reference, Hillary, we're pre-budget days. Mayor Love?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions on the budget to actuals that the treasurer's provided. I have a question on page 18 of the agenda. I was wondering, Amanda, if you could clarify for me the line item that says, this is on curbside pickup. It says curbside pickup collection contract, and I'm just looking at the 2020 actual value of $4,218 versus the budgeted value of $0. I'm just wondering what that was in relationship to.
I believe it was just a coding error. So if you actually look at up above where it says tipping fees, we budgeted 15 and spent 77. The number down below 4218, that's a bill that should have gone into the line up above. So the curbside pickup tipping fees is more almost $12,000 to the budget of 15.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question on page 19. Under transfer stations, capital expenditure. Again, I'm just trying to understand last year's numbers, and the actual value is 17,248, but the budget was $0. So I'm just wondering what that was in relation to.
That would be the proposal from Pinchin Environmental that occurred after the budget was passed for the testing wells at the Radcliffe transfer station.
Great, thank you. That clears that up.
Any other discussion by council members on this? To you, Ernie?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Actually, my question, and I would just like to, and it's basically, it's a comment, and they, as we're looking at our new format here of these statements, I find them quite interesting because in my background, and I've always, every time I see a minus sign, it tells me one thing, and it's a negative. But we're using it in many, many cases, and I'd like to sit down with the treasurer and get a better explanation as to in some of these areas where under revenue I see expenses. So I'm wondering this, and you probably see this yourself and are working on trying to get something a little more clear. But you know, I'm used to reading financial statements and all of this stuff, but as they say, I don't know about you folks, but every time I see a minus, it tells me it's a negative. So, and they're all over the place on this forum. And that's something that I'd like to get my head around, and obviously trying to understand how this system is working. It does not make it simple from what I'm seeing. Maybe in the end it will be, but I'd like that opportunity to meet with the treasurer.
It's fine. At the last meeting, I did identify that the minuses are revenues and expenses will be positives or not have the minus sign in front of them. So the report on top is the revenues, and then on the bottom is the expenditures. So for the one page for roadway, within the expenses, there's equipment rental revenue, and that's as a minus because it's a transfer from one department to another. So it's kind of an offsetting expenditure, I guess you can say, that brings in revenue to the roadways or public works department.
Thank you. I look forward to getting together and having, because I do have some other on these statements, but I don't want to take the time today. I'm sure there's answers for all of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Then we can get along to the final item on this agenda here. We have an email from Jim Clellan regarding Kaministake Lake, Madawaska River. And everybody has a copy of that. Should I read that, do you think? I think it's just for information purposes. Maybe we can, there's an awful lot of items on this email that we really don't have any control over. And especially when it comes to water systems, that's federal. So I'll just leave that as part of the information. To you, Ernie?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Actually, yeah, there are many concerns that's raised in the letter. However, there are some that we should be talking about when he makes reference to the inadequacies in the docking facility in Cumbermere. He's made some really good suggestions, and I would like to have this directed to our operations manager and see what some of the things that we could address under repairs or whatever. But there's some really, really good. There's also some other points about the lack of gas and the dangers of people driving with gas cans in the car. That's a point that I've raised for the last 6 or 7 years. And so there's an economic development issue here. So I think this is a letter, which is a very good letter. And actually, I tried to respond to it, but because it looked like it came from the county, I can't directly respond to Mr. Cleland. However, I think it is something that it's not something that has just come out of left field. Most of these issues have already been raised. So, however, the one dealing with the docks, I know we did some repairs on the dock the last couple of years, but that's something that should be revisited and before budget time and seeing what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. Any other further discussion on this? To you, Sue?
Maybe the operations manager wants to comment. I do recall staff having a discussion about this when we were working on capital for budgets.
So through you, Chair, the docks have reached their life cycles, both docks and the one in Cumber and the one in Birds Bay. And we are gearing up for some kind of retrofit, possibly. And for this year, I've spoke to the treasurer, and there will be money for possibly looking at these repairs. And they're not going anywhere for 2021, but it is a big cost, these two docks. We're looking at the extensive money. So this year I spoke to Amanda, and we're gonna budget some money towards getting it possibly into RFQ stage for 2022. And then we look at these concerns, like he speaks of longer fingers. I believe with the bigger boats now, it might be viable to make longer fingers. So that's the plan of attack for 2021.
We'll probably discuss that through budget, eh? Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that then, Ernie? Does that help you out? At least we're going to move on it. Ernie, yes?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, and I'm sure that the regular maintenance in the spring, looking at it for any deficiencies or any safety issues, that I'm sure that'll be part of your operations moving forward. And we may not be doing anything major, but making sure that we address many of the issues last year and corrected some, but that is something I'm sure is an ongoing, work things to do for you. So I just remind you that that would be something that we would expect to have done. Thank you.
Thank you. To you, Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times at meetings. I do believe that council should take a look at what we do with the proceeds from the sale of shoreline road allowances, because the replacement of these two docks is going to be extremely expensive. Staff has acknowledged that. We're looking at potentially $250,000 between the two docks. So if we are not taking the money that we receive when we sell shoreline road allowance and putting it into a reserve that we can then tap into when we need to do major repairs to the public access points for our waterways, perhaps we're not using it as wisely as we should be. I understand it's going to offset taxation through the general revenues, but this is an opportunity to dedicate those funds to these types of projects so that when there is a need to do some major work or possibly even look at expanding a dock, it would be very nice for the council of the day to have a reserve that was built from those funds from those sales to be able to tap into. So again, I will bring this up to council and make the suggestion that we consider the possibility of doing that, of starting to dedicate our reserve specifically for the funds that we get from the sale of this property, this municipal property, so that we have somewhere in our system where we're saving money towards these sorts of projects. Again, we want to make sure there's good public access to the waterways, and that would be in my thinking, that would be a great way to start to fund these sorts of projects going forward. So I don't know, is this something that needs to be discussed at budget time? Maybe I'll ask Sue or the treasurer to respond to this, but I think it is something that council should consider. And if that seems like a viable way to start to build a reserve for these launching facilities, then let's make the decision and start to redirect those funds. Can anybody speak to when we should be doing that?
That's a great decision. Yeah. What do you think, Amanda? Do you think we should maybe bring that up during budget talks? See if we can establish a fund like that?
I think it would be a good idea once we start looking at the budget next week to see where we're at, and then it would be a good idea. I believe previously the direction was for shoreline road allowance monies to be directed to building reserve, like for office buildings and other structures, recreational buildings. So to redirect it to recreational and on the water type of things, we can definitely do that.
You, Ernie?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think that's a very good idea. Also, considering the amount of damage we've had along the water in the last several years with shoreline, I think that now it's timely for us to consider this, because I know there are active groups right now. We'll be coming to council and seeing if we can, we have to get involved. We don't have a choice. And this would be one way of addressing that problem. But I know during the big flood 3 years ago, we had received some funding to repair the docks in Cumbermere and Barry's Bay and so on. So this is, I think, a very timely discussion, and I think we need to make sure that the money is being spent, to repair these deficiencies. So, very good point. I would support it.
Well spoken. Anything we can do to enhance our recreation for the visitors in this township is going to be well worth it over the long haul. To you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I agree too. I think we need to find ways to support our infrastructure on the river. And as Councillor Poplinski mentions, we've had 2 floods in basically 3-4 years. So we're always having damage, but at the same time, items like the docks are expensive, and we do not have any way to sort of constantly maintain them or any funding that we can rely on. So I think doing this and when we sell waterfront property, using the revenues to repair our waterfront is a very good idea.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I see none. There's no unfinished business, so I'll turn it back to you, Mayor Love. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Our next section is operations, water, wastewater, and facilities, and I'm going to turn it over to Chair Schulist.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we're to start off with municipal reports 7.11, letter from Scott Stewart. I see Scott is in the table here, and letter addressed to the mayor. Maybe Mr. Stewart, you could speak on this matter.
Is this the drinking water report?
Well, this is about the annual report required by the Ontario regulation that you wrote a letter.
Right.
Stating that we need to follow these here in order to get it into our annual report.
Yeah, so I have the annual drinking water report, and yeah, I had a cover letter there that this needs to be resolved by council. That's part of the regulation. And this report needs to be made public, that anybody can read it. I can go through it. We go through the quarterly reports with you guys. So this is just summarizing what we speak about more often. We get together every quarter and talk about the performance of the water plant, but this report just summarizes those for the year. And if we did have the MOE inspection this year, and we did receive 100%. We spoke of that the last meeting I was with you guys. I guess the report's here. Is there any questions on the report, or would you like me to speak anything in particular?
Yeah, I have some questions here, but I see Mayor Love has her hands up. So we're now dealing with 7.12, and that's the annual report. Yes, Madam Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I would have let you go first, but if you want me to go first, that's fine.
No,
okay, I would refer to page 37 of the agenda, which is page 10 of the drinking water system report. I just want to ask, because I'm racking my memory and I don't recall. Is it unusual for the trihalomethane annual average to be greater than half the maximum allowable concentration? That it stood out to me, and I was kind of surprised.
Yeah. So the reason the half MAC, MAC is the maximum allowed concentration. The reason that the half is on here is that for all of the other parameters, anything that's over half of what the limit is, we would sample for quarterly rather than just annually for all of the annual samples. So if I use an example, vinyl chloride, if that was over half of what's allowed, then we would switch from not only sampling that just annually, we would do it every quarter until to monitor that particular parameter. Trihalomethanes are already sampled quarterly, so and they are up a little bit than what we generally see in Barry's Bay, but I did find that they were up in our whole area. So I don't know if it had something to do with the year, but we've been monitoring that close. We do sample it quarterly, and it's not. It seems to be going back to where our regular levels are, but we are well under we're still under the MAC, and we have some things we can do to hopefully get that down a bit more.
Okay, great. The reason I was asking is originally back in 2004, 2005, when the renovation work was done to the water treatment plant, one of the big concerns at the time was fairly high levels of trihalomethanes. And it was my expectation that that work, and it did, bring the levels right down quite low. So as I'm seeing something start to emerge as it looking like an issue, that's why I wanted to ask about that specifically, in case there was something about the plant that we needed to repair, replace, in order to keep those levels down.
Yeah.
So just explaining why it stood out for me, because I recall making the decisions at the time to go forward with that renovation because of the high levels of trihalomethanes. My second question is just in relation to page 38 of the agenda, which is page 11 of your report. You have a list of a number of curb stops that had to be replaced. And I'm assuming, is the curb stop work due to meter replacements? And if so, does that mean that the majority of our curb stops are now in working order? I just wondered if you could speak to that.
Well, yeah, some of the replacements were due to curb stops that weren't working during the meter replacement. I wouldn't be all of them, because there is a number of curb stops that get repaired on a yearly basis. I do believe, I can't really speak to say that every curb stop is working, because if the valve inside the house, to my understanding, if it worked, then it didn't need to be shut off at the curb for Neptune to do the meter replacement. So I wouldn't be able to say that, but we do replace a certain number of curb stops every year as they're found to be deficient. They are important if you need them, you need them. So they need to work.
That's great. Thank you. I just wanted a clarification on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Yeah, my two questions are on page 32. And anytime I see a report and see graphs and stuff like that, I'm looking at the monthly rated flows on page 32. There's a drop in October down to December. And I always react to it because that's a change and all that. I don't know if this happens every year. Can you maybe explain that, because that's maybe a little concerning, but at the same time, maybe there's nothing to be concerned about. Thank you.
Yeah. So a lot of the time through the summer months, you might see a little higher flows, and that's a lot of that would be due to some lawn watering that would go on that people might use during the summertime, during the summer months. I can speak to you. The difference between on the report, the red line on the graph is the maximum flow, like maximum daily flow. So that month, the highest rate of flow for any single day, versus the green line would be the average flow on any given day. So any difference between those shows that there's one day perhaps, or a couple days, where the flow was much higher than what it was on average. And so you'll see that easily on like September and generally around May because of flushing. So on the days we flush, we use quite a bit more water than on an average day. So you'll see those variations in there. Because there's also, through the summertime, there may be more maintenance activities that we're doing in the distribution system as well. But once things get cold, you don't want a lot of water outside laying on the ground, as little as we can make.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that. That's perfect. On page 38 and 39, of course, the word complaint, right? One of the things I noticed too about one of the words being used is about discolor yellowing and so on. And another thing that's connected to it is flushing the hydrants. Now, is this something that people end up complaining and then you react to it? Or is it something, does the fire department here get involved? Because really it's got to do with hydrants, right? So is there not an annual, inspection on these hydrants? Or maybe explain this, because really it seems like all these complaints had to do with discoloring and yellowing of water, yet the culprit was the hydrant.
Yeah, so what would happen, we do have a flushing program where we go every spring and in the fall, and we turn every hydrant and make sure it's operational. That's part of the flushing program, is actual maintenance on the hydrants. And the other part of that is a good clean of the lines, because even clean water will have some things that precipitate out and a little bit of dirt that can build up in the lines. So we want to make sure we get a good flush and get all that dirt out. So we do that twice a year. But then when you have a color complaint, is people have some of that water in between the flushing programs where they start to get some dirt, then the best fix for that is to go open the hydrant and clear that line out. Now, ideally, we do that as little as possible. That we don't have color complaints and we get a good flush. I would say we did notice an increase in color complaints this year and incidents of color in the township. I believe that's connected to Mayor Love's comment on the trihalomethanes as well, because it is to do with the distribution system. I don't want to speculate too much, but I do believe myself that it's due to some areas of the town we didn't see as much water usage, and so the water was more stagnant in the lines, where, you know, in a regular year without COVID-19, you have the arenas running, you have you know, more recreational activities going on that may use water. When you're not having that for a summer, it just changes the dynamic of how things are working in the distribution system. So we've been tracking this really close internally with our staff, and trying to whether where these color complaints are coming from, and do our best to eliminate them. And hopefully through flushing, better flushing program, we can accomplish that.
Yeah, I can see the stagnant. If you don't use something, it is something that just sits around, and all of a sudden when you start using it, it comes out now there. So I see Mayor Love's got her hand up.
I just wanted to address the word stagnant, because that has connotations that I don't really want the public to think that the water in the line is stagnant water. It does have to meet a level of chlorine residual. I recognize what you're saying, Scott, but I'm going to be politically correct and suggest find a better word.
Yeah,
because,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, because could you just speak to the fact that there is a chlorine residual and that is monitored?
Yeah, and so of course, yeah, you're right. Sorry, when you're working it every day, you forget a bit of. Yes, we do check the chlorine residual, and that will deteriorate. We have to keep so much chlorine in the water all the time. So the water is sampled weekly from all over different corners of the town. We have a really good sampling program. We don't have any water that would be unsafe for use. It's just if it's the longer it sits in the lines, the more things can come out of the water, and the more it can be freshened up. That's why we do the flushing programs.
We will use another word or term for that. Okay, very good.
Okay.
Any other questions for Scott or Ashley from council? I don't see any, so we're going to then continue. We're going to go to 7.1.3, and it's got to do with a performance report, Barry's Bay drinking water system and water treatment. This is a fourth quarter of 2020. Who wants to speak on this? Ashley, do you want to speak on this?
Sure, I can. Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, so in front of you, you have a copy of the fourth quarter 2020 performance report for the Barry's Bay drinking water and wastewater systems. I'm assuming everybody had a chance maybe to look at the document. In there, as Scott alluded to with the annual report, everything in this is always also covered in the annual report as well. We kind of did this one, the Q4 should have been before the annual, but that's okay. So in there, it just highlights our flows, work orders, system issues, capital tracking with regards to work orders and maintenance that was completed at the time. And closer to the back under Appendix A, we have all our sampling data that was completed in the fourth quarter for both the Barry's Bay Water Treatment Plant and the Barry's Bay Water Wastewater Treatment System, as well as Appendix B with the cost plus variance report, which is right there at the end.
Okay, is there any questions for Ashley on this report? Yes, Madam Mayor.
Oh, Ashley, you knew I was going to ask.
All good.
Yeah.
I know. We have a great working relationship, but I've got to ask about the cost plus report.
Yep.
And the salaries, the overage, especially in terms of the water plant and system. I noticed that you do say it's due to shadowing of new staff contributed to the overages, but wow, 31,000 is a lot. And if I look at that, that's almost 20 cents per cubic meter that I would have had to add to the price of water in order to cover that overage. So I have some questions, just if you could let me know, does the new staff person work at Barry's Bay? And is this person shared with other contracting municipalities? And if so, was the cost shared with other contracting municipalities?
Yes, Kim, we did have a new hire in March of last year. She is, sorry, I can't talk right now. Yes, so she is shadowing all areas. Typically last year, just with the spring turnover that we had, it seemed to be very difficult for the, not difficult for the plant, but it was very operator intuitive, that meaning we had to be there a lot more than typical. In the spring, when the ice is coming off and turning, the turbidity spike up to, this year was over 5 NTU, which is quite high in the amount of years I've been here. I've only ever seen that once before. So that also impacts our filter efficiencies, our chlorine demand, as well as our coagulant demand. So everything there kind of compounded and made it a lot more operator intuitive than it has in the past. But to answer your question, yes, the new staff is job shadowing throughout all of the areas that are in the Madawaska River cluster. Just last year, she was more solely based in the Barry's Bay areas. So I wouldn't be scared to say that this year would be not a reflection of last year.
Okay, my concern is obviously that we're now, when it all nets out, we're showing a $23,446 shortfall that we then have to find and pay to you. I'm getting an echo and I don't know why. Anyways, I hope everybody else isn't. So it is a huge impact on our rates. Like I said, it would have represented another 20 cents just to raise that kind of money from our rate based on our average amount that we sell. So is there some way that, it's challenging because we can't change the rate mid-year, but we do need a heads up if this is going to happen. So I don't feel we really had a big heads up on this past year. Is there something you can do to help us to know that if there's going to be an issue in the future?
Yes, we can certainly work together to try to mitigate that and try to open the communication lines better if this starts to be an issue earlier on or as the year progresses.
Okay, I think that's really important, just so that the municipality has a heads up. We need to be aware if our cost plus component is going to end up with a significant charge at the end of the year. It helps us to then plan for the next year in terms of budgeting. Thank you.
So any other questions from council? Having received these report, Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Councillor Schulis. Just had a quick one. It's just for my own information. On the compliance excellence section on page 1, the ammonia, it says objective 3 milligrams per liter, but we're showing 4.9 and 6.7, and it just says complete. So what does that really mean? Are we trying to get to 3 or?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So what we have in our ECA is they give us two numbers from the ministry. One is an objective and one is the limit. So the limit is not to be exceeded. That would be a non-compliance if you're at a compliance if you go over the limited number. And then the objective is more of what the plant would be designed to do. And that's what you're aiming for. So what they want you to do through the ministry is that of course, if you're over the limit, then you need to report it as a non-compliance and work to correct that. Anytime that your monthly average is over the objective, they want you to be tracking that and working towards getting it down to the objective. So that's why I always list them in these performance reports to show that like we do keep track of what our ammonia is and we are working to get it as low as possible. And there was, yeah, through 2 of the months we did exceed our objective, but we're not out of compliance with these numbers. And that
thank you.
It's just
thank you. I just wonder, just further to that. So where would we start getting into trouble? How high would we have to go?
So each parameter is different. With our ammonia, we have an objective. There's no limit on ammonia by itself in our ECA. What our ECA says is that the water can't be acutely lethal. And that's, if you remember a couple years back, when I first started, that's where we were having a lot of trouble with ammonia. And we had people, we had a program come from Toronto to assist us because we had to get this under control. And so that's where we have the non-acutely lethal test is done quarterly. And that's referred to as the fish test. And so that would be our limit on ammonia, is that the water is still not killing fish. But our objective is, and the objective changes throughout the year, actually. In the wintertime, it's higher. It's 3 in the wintertime and 1 in the summertime. So we usually start to see trouble around 15 milligrams per liter. That means that our nitrification process is starting to get away on us pretty good. But these numbers low like this it's just optimization now to get that number down below the objective and meet that objective.
Okay, no, that's good to know that we're staying relatively close to the objective then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions from council? Okay, having received these 2 wonderful reports, thanks a lot, Scott and Ashley. Well done. Do we have to? Yes, Ashley.
Sorry, maybe I'm out of turn here. I just wanted to speak to the water main break that occurred on February 20th. But if you want to do I don't know if this requires a resolution for this component, I can speak after that.
Yeah, you know what? Under unfinished business, I'm going to bring this up. Okay. And right now we'll take care of these reports here. I wonder if we need a motion to go and accept these reports, Madam CEO.
Yes, if I may, I'll read the resolution that the Barry's Bay Drinking Water System 2020 Annual Water Report is accepted as presented.
Okay, I need a mover. Mayor Love, and seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is
one more
carried.
Report.
Yes.
One more resolution, please.
Mm-hmm.
That the Barry's Bay Drinking Water System and Wastewater Treatment 4th quarter 2020 performance report is accepted as presented.
Okay, I need a mover. Councillor Wilmer, Councillor Brumwich, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Okay, we're going to move on to 7.1.4, and this is the budget. I know the facilities that are affected by any usage is the PJY, our railway station, and also our parks. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't have any questions. I don't know if Amanda wants to speak on behalf of this budget. Okay, Amanda?
So when I was printing these off and trying to allocate them to the appropriate departments, I had asked the deputy clerk where to, what are the headings or the department headings for the agenda. So looking at the different committees, the one was water, wastewater, and facilities. And I wasn't sure if I should put the facilities budgets under this section. Sorry, I have an echo too. Or within the recreation portion. So we can change this if committee so chooses, but so that's why they're under here. The second thing I wanted to bring up with you is the water and wastewater numbers. I wasn't able to have, iCity wasn't able to bring in the numbers until after the agenda was close to being published, and I was still reviewing to make sure that everything was accurate. So I will present those to you at the council meeting for the budget departments for 2021 and the actuals.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions on what Amanda's presented to us? Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm just finding the page. I think it's page 61 of your package. It is the parks budget. I noticed the last two lines, capital expenditure and capital reserve. The expenditure for 2020 was only $808, but the budget was $20,000 on the first line. And on the second one, the expenditure was $15,000, but the budget was $5,000. I'm wondering if that's a transposition or using the incorrect number, or has something been moved around there?
So the $808 actual value that we had budgeted $10,000 for park playground repairs, and that's the actual value that they used. They weren't able to do much, so they did some minor repairs that the staff was able to complete themselves. So that's what that is. The $15,000 under actual values for capital reserves, that is a keying error. So we budgeted $5 to go into the capital reserves. So that has been fixed, and it's actually only $5 went into capital reserves.
Great, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about that when budget time comes next week and so on. Any other questions? All right. We don't have to do anything with this. I just accepted. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question on the, again, page 36 or page 61 of the council minutes. On line, where was it? Yeah, parks grant expense, where we're at 11,139 and we've only budgeted 1,800. Is that something that's offset with the revenue?
Yes, Amanda. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. I will have to look into that, but that's where if we get a grant within the year, and then we have, that's where we put our offsetting expenses for that grant. So it's likely that we had budgeted because we knew of something that we had in 2020 for 1805, and then something came along later on. And so we needed somewhere to put those. So I'm not sure exactly what is comprised of that additional $10,000 or $9,000. But I can follow up on that and provide you with the details at the next meeting.
Okay, because my thought would be if it's a grant expense, there should be a grant revenue associated with it somewhere.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council or staff? Seeing none, can we move on, Madam C? Amanda?
Sorry, I just got word from Stephanie that additional monies, that's the expense for the wheelchair grant that we received that in the summer or whatever. So there's a revenue line for it, and this is the offsetting expenditure line.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, hot off the press. Any other questions? And then we can, Madam CEO, can we just move on now? This is just kind of information for us. True or false?
Yes, that's correct. You can go to unfinished business.
Okay, sounds good. Unfinished business, there was a water main break on Old Barry's Bay Road and Olszewski Drive, I guess it's called. Ashley, can you speak on this, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you. As you all know, on Saturday, February 20th at about 5:15 p.m., we had a water main break on Old Barry's Bay Road in front of 3718. Staff were on site and had it isolated within 30 minutes, which is pretty good. By the time they are able to find the valves in the frozen road and access them, sometimes can be a lot of fun, especially if they're in a snowbank or in the ice. But anyway, we estimate around 200 cubic meters was lost within that time. It was an 8-inch pipe that broke. It split along the pipe. I believe it started around a saddle and split around 2 meters of pipe. So there was 11 houses affected by the break. We isolated everything, and it was scheduled for the work to commence at 8 o'clock on February the 21st on a Sunday morning, just because it was almost dark already. And by the time the equipment all gets here and the locates get done, we likely wouldn't have got excavating till in the middle of the night anyway. So we scheduled it for 8 a.m. in the morning. The town, ourselves and BI were on site and made the repairs. I believe the water was back on right around 2 p.m. and flushed, and everybody was back in service.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Thank you very much for taking care of business. There's no questions on this matter here with this main break. Seeing none, committee is finished, and so I'll pass it on to the mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ashley. We appreciate your attendance and the information you bring. Our next committee is Fire and Protection and Emergency Management, and I'll turn it over to Chair Poplinski.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I'm just wondering, is our fire chief with us this morning?
I'm here, Chair Poplinski.
Oh, there he is. Good morning.
Morning.
We have on our agenda in pages 63 to 65 in your package, 8.11, and it's a fire department update recommendation that staff be given directions how to proceed. So we'll get you, Chief, to enlighten us here on this particular matter.
The first item on the list is we got the South Hall 1996 rescue truck. It was listed on Gov Deals auction site for about 2 weeks. A fellow from the Bancroft area successfully bid $4,500 and was accepted. The money will go into the sale of land and equipment budget line for the budget and right in here gets reserves. The fellow picked the truck up. He's quite happy with it. So that's gone and sold now. When we had original tender, we didn't have any tenders on it, so we went that way and it worked well with Gov Deals. Then the second thing is the 2002 pumper truck down in year 2 that we has a loaner. I spoke to about 3 different scrap dealers or like large truck and equipment dealers. They figured the truck's worth about $2,000 to $3,000 in scrap metal. Battle Shield came across it. What I was talking about is another they were getting done by them, repairs, and they said they may be interested in looking at the truck to see if it's actually worth them to possibly refurbish it. They would accept the truck and take it down to their site if council allows it, and see if it is worthwhile trying to refurbish and sell in the States. It won't meet Ontario standards, but I'm looking for council to say whether we want to go with a scrap deal or we want to let Battle Shields to look at it, see if it's worth it or not. So I'm just trying to look for direction and what to do, possibly do with that 2002 pumper that we have in year 2 that's been sitting there for a couple of years now.
So any comments or questions by members of council? Yes, Councillor Wilmer.
Just for clarification, so is Battle Shield ready to give us between $2,000 and $3,000 no matter what? And then if the pump and everything else works, they would consider offering us more?
That's
that
what
what
they're
it is,
suggesting
or
right
are
now. I
they-
haven't heard back from them.
So their minimum offer would be as much as selling it for scrap?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mayor Love.
So if Battle Shield's minimum offer would be basically the same as selling it for scrap, why would we not provide them with an opportunity to check it out? Because if it can be refitted and sold by them in the United States, then at least it's not being scrapped and ending up in some scrapyard or in a, some sort of landfill somewhere. So it would actually be useful. So I don't know why we wouldn't allow them to do that. And we have the potential that they may offer us more than what we would get from scrap. So why wouldn't we just let them come and see? I can't see the downside to that.
Okay, any further comments? Yes, Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, and that was my point too. I'm not quite sure how we would end up getting more though. If we sold it to them for 2,000 to 3,000 and then they discovered it was worth quite a bit more to them, are they just going to offer us more money at that point, or are they just going to think they got a great deal? I think either way, it's best to sell it to them, because as the mayor has said, it keeps out of the landfill, and it also we're getting as much revenue anyway.
Chief Quad, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I've dealt with Battle Shield quite a few times, numerous times. They're trying to be honest. They said they're a very reputable company. So the owners want to have to speak it to. So the reason he said if the truck is worthwhile for him to refurbish, he gives us a fair market value on being able to give us that price. That's what I'm saying. That's the reason he made that offer to me. So I know he is quite an honest fellow. We've dealt with him for many years. He's very reputable. So if I had to get council's direction to see whether we're going to follow up with this or not, he will look at the truck once I get council to agree that we can even do this. So that's what I had to wait for, and that's what he's waiting for my answer from give back to him.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think we need a resolution here by the committee to proceed in that matter to see if we can get a few extra dollars. Is that the way we'd like to proceed? Okay, and yes, Madam CAO.
I can read a resolution for consideration, and I'll include the funds from the sale of the surplus equipment.
Okay.
That council approved that the proceeds from the sale of surplus equipment, the 1996 rescue truck, be placed in the sale of land equipment line item 0140000661028, and that council directs staff to proceed with discussions with Battle Shield and proceed with the disposal only if the price is comparable to the cost of scrap metal and the offer is based on a fair market value.
Okay, we've heard the resolution. Can I have somebody move it? Okay, Councillor Schulis, and I'll second it. Any further comments or questions on the resolution? Having none, don't see any hands. Then the motion is granted. My just clarification, I'm Madam CAO, if you could enlighten me on this, where the money is actually going to go, the sale of land and equipment. Now, do we not use that money for other equipment, or perhaps it is in this particular line item for fire equipment, because it would make a lot of sense to keep that money within if we can.
Mhm.
Yes, I'll let the treasurer comment on that. I do believe that it is under the fire department.
Okay.
It is. So typically I would ask the departments what kind of revenues they are forecasting for the year. And we usually budget the sale of surplus equipment
Yes.
for the year that it's coming in. So it offsets the expenditures for the year.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Okay, so
Councillor Wilmer.
yes, I'm sorry.
Chair, I think
Yes,
Councillor Wilmer has his hand up.
Councillor Wilmer. I'm just having a little difficulty hearing.
You're muted, Mark.
That better? Okay, no, I know everyone is breaking up, and I know I keep getting a command saying the internet is unstable. But no, I was just going to say on that motion, I don't think, Chair Polinsky, that we actually voted on it. We moved it and seconded it, but we didn't vote on it.
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to, because I could see people talking, but I couldn't hear what was going on. Okay, there were further comments? No, having none? Okay, so we'll vote on the resolution. Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's granted. Okay, in our package, pages 67 to 73, we have the bylaws and fire calls for service. Chief Quad, if you could enlighten us on that.
Okay, let's see here. Background information, not including the background information or breakdown of calls due to questions, enforcement of protocols of COVID-19 infractions. All questions received due to masking and large gatherings have been forwarded to Renfrew County and District Health Unit for a response. Enforcement on COVID-19 violations, the Renfrew County District Health Unit informed me that a local OPP will do all enforcement actions for any violations that have been reported to them. Their OP does all of ticketing or any kind of enforcement action, not the municipality. RDHU will assist or attend certain venues that do happen where if they have available staff, if not, they will pass the information along to the OPP to do enforcement. Due to the large gathering that did happen in Madawaska Valley, Barry's Bay about a month ago at the three-way stop, the Ontario Provincial Police were contacted. Their liaison group for protest and large gathering kind of things like that, where it was contacted, he followed up with the organizers of the protest. It's in the OPP's hands now. We haven't heard any back from them, but they did explain the COVID-19 regulations and what was expected of them if they are having a gathering, and the notifications that are required to the OPP.
Are there any questions by committee on
Nope.
that particular item? Did you have your hand up, Mark? No? Okay. I'm just going to comment, and maybe somebody can set me clear. There seems to be a whole lot of question as who's responsible. I've had phone calls from people saying, you've got bylaw officer, why aren't you enforcing the law? And of course, we have the OPP supposedly to be doing that. And there seems to be some ambiguity about that as to who's doing what. And I was just wondering, a direct question to you, Chief, are you finding that situation where you're being brought into the situation and to deal with issues like this? And are we clear on who's mandated to do this?
Councillor Poplinski or Chair Poplinski, we haven't actually received any direct calls or complaints from anybody. I've had a couple of inquiries. I've had one inquiry actually about a business at the beginning of the pandemic back in January. That was the only actual direct call that I had received on a complaint with a business having people at their establishment. Other than that, we have never had any direct complaints. Nobody's actually made a direct complaint saying there was nobody wearing masks from any business or any individuals out in the public that have actually phoned me and left me any kind of message such as that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from committee? I don't see any. Okay, so we'll, yes, Mayor Love, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Our bylaw enforcement officer has been out in the public doing education. He's certainly responded if there are a group of people, for example, using the outdoor rink and possibly playing hockey, he would go and educate that's not allowed. So we encourage that education component from bylaw enforcement, but we have one bylaw enforcement officer. If there's ever a situation where it could be confrontational, I don't think it's appropriate to send one employee. And we also have to recognize that this is a full-time employee, so we cannot be asking that employee to go out all hours of the day and night, all weekend long to deal with these issues. That's why we have worked with the Renfrew County and District Health Unit, and we recognize that the best enforcement agency for our community is the OPP. They're there, they're available, and if there's ever any question of a situation becoming confrontational, they are well and truly trained in how to deal with those situations. So I think for the public's information, they need to recognize that there is only one bylaw enforcement officer. It is a part-time component of our fire chief's job, and he has been out there doing education, but we don't expect that one individual would be all throughout our community doing enforcement. So we do refer any complaints or anything, any inquiries we get directly to Renfrew County and District Health Unit, because there are some exemptions and some interpretations that sometimes are required with provincial orders and even with the guidelines of public health. Renfrew County and District Health Unit then addresses the situation, providing additional clarification to those making the inquiries, or through the use of the OPP if it's a matter that requires enforcement. So the public needs to recognize that we are working well within the resources that we have, using them to the best of our capability as a municipality. But in the end, it is more a matter that will be addressed by the OPP if it becomes an issue where ticketing or that kind of enforcement is required. Our businesses are working very hard to follow all the guidelines and protocols, but they too are faced with the reality that there are exemptions and they have to respect those exemptions. And so, you know, this is not an easy, simple situation. The rules and what's in force are changing constantly based on the situation, based on determinations by public health, based on determinations by the province. We are doing our utmost to keep up with this. But there is only so much we can do as a small rural municipality. We do not have a bylaw enforcement department like a large city. So, you know, everyone needs to take some responsibility for their own actions, self-regulate, as I've been stating through messaging, and look after each other by just following the guidelines. And that's what we're asking respectfully that people will do. I just wanted to make that very clear, because our bylaw enforcement officer is doing exactly what we have asked him to do, which is education. But we haven't asked that it be enforcement and ticketing, because we have another service that's far, far better at being able to deal with those situations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I think we've done a very good job of educating the public, and I'm sure that'll continue. I think it's just this one particular area. And I know in some of the calls I've had repeated calls from some people, and they keep reminding us that it's the bylaw enforcement officers in all the big cities. And we're no big city, and we don't have the budget, we don't have the personnel. But I just want to make sure that we know exactly who's doing what, and it sounds like the chief is doing a very good job of educating the people and doing the job that we're asking him to do. It's just, I think we need to, along with educating the people out there, we need to mention the fact that the Renfrew County Health and the OPP are really the bodies that look after the enforcement of it. And I think that's where there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, but we just continue to do what we're doing. Thank you. Yes, Madam CAO?
To that point, just wanted to add that bylaw and administration have worked closely with businesses and ratepayers who have contacted the municipality. any issues with businesses or clarification that we received at the office about masks particularly have been about seeking explanation on exemptions and how they can be applied. And they've been referred to the county district health unit when that occurs. We've received a few calls about large gatherings, and they as well are forwarded both to Renfrew County District Health Unit and the OPP. And both organizations have been very prompt in copying us on their replies to the individuals, that we may be aware that those issues or concerns have been addressed. There has been occasion where a business owner was recommended to contact the OPP when they felt that they felt more intimidated, and the advice was to obtain restraining orders if individuals were aggressive and or if the staff or owners claimed that they felt intimidated or threatened. And both and the Renfrew County District Health Unit has continually everyone that we from the municipality has forwarded a concern in writing to the Renfrew County District Health Unit. They've replied like within 48 hours and have copied both bylaw and the staff that has sent the inquiry. So just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you, Madam CAO. Councillor Bromwich, I think you had your hand up. No? No, okay.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I just probably waving at somebody with the window here.
Oh, okay. Just didn't want to ignore you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Any other comments on that? I think it's fairly clear as to moving forward. You're okay with that, Chief Quad?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on, and if we could do all of the recommendations then at the end, if that's okay with everyone there. In pages 75 to 77, 8.13, and it's the closing of the Fire College update. And Chief, if you'd like to comment on that.
Okay, as I said in the previous meeting, we were told that on March 31st, 2021, the Ontario Fire College would close permanently. They would, the government is not planning on keeping it open as of right now, so they want to go to regional training centers. There's 20 currently in the province, but the cost of the closing the college will cost municipalities a substantial amount of more. So on February 3rd, we had a East Ontario Pac 6 Chiefs meeting to discuss this. And like all the fire chiefs from East Ontario, there was 55 in attendance on the Zoom, said none of them were ever consulted that they're ever going to close the college. And everybody agreed the cost of now training for firefighters is going to be substantially more. It was $65 per course. Now it's a cost recovery at every training center. There is no standardized cost. There's no subsidy anymore. So those are some of the concerns. Like they said, we got 3 different levels of fire departments. You got a full-time fire department like Toronto, Peterborough, Hamilton. They're full-time departments. Then you got composite fire departments, which are made up of career firefighters and volunteer firefighters, which includes Ottawa, Pembroke, Renfrew, and Belleville. They got both. And then you got volunteer fire departments such as ours, Madawaska Valley, Haggard Richard, Brewdale, and Lindau, make up the majority, over half of the fire departments in the province. So like we're saying, we're all small municipalities. It costs a lot to train a firefighter to keep them in place. With the closing of the college and no subsidies, it's just going to be a major, major hit for us. So they're saying, we're asking the unions sent a letter asking councils to support keep the college open. So other fire departments and other municipalities, so the province has sent letters to the Ontario government asking to keep the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst open, because there's right now no plan for us as to what they want for training. If there's going to be subsidies, they asked about the 2021 budget for the Ontario government. They said there's no extra money for the fire service whatsoever. They told us there's going to be a plan for training coming up. They haven't provided that to us, so it's all over the place what the Ontario government's done to us. It's dropped the bomb on us. And like they said, across the board, it's pretty much another downrunning of services to the municipality away from the province. Like I said, they're talking about having a regional training center within an hour and a half of every fire department within the province. If they do that, the one place they're proposing to put one in Renfrew County is at CNL, that's in the works right now, but that's still up with the lawyers. And the next closest one will be up in Huntsville whenever it becomes open, if it's approved also. So right now, all fire departments are hoping for their councils to send a letter to the province to ask to reverse the closing of the college and keep it open. It offers all the courses, right from firefighter 1 to like a full a fire chief, including all the investigations and inspection courses. Not all regional training centers do that. So that's sort of the breakdown of what's going on right now with the closing the fire college.
So my question to you, after your meeting on February the 3rd, was it?
Yes.
February the 3rd, was there were you expecting to get some answers back? Or have you already received information back saying they would do nothing?
Right now, well, I'm
quite sure.
Oh, February 17th, I'm sorry. On February 17th, we met with the Ontario Fire Marshal's office and the Solicitor General's office, and we presented those questions to them. And right now, they said the province will not reverse their idea of closing the college. They could not provide us any information on what their training plan was. They said standardized training is coming down the line, which will be modernized, not so firefighters will have to be certified. The only thing they backed off on is, have to be qualified, not certified. That's the only thing the government did back off on. But they said they have no money to subsidize anything. It's going to be all come on top of municipalities to pay for the full training for their firefighters. And other than that, they couldn't tell us any about the actual training plan, if they want to change the curriculum or anything else. They said if you want money for subsidies, they may ask for the 2022 budget, if they'll approve it or not. But right now, they said there's absolutely $0 for training for firefighters after the college closes. That's the only answers we got from the Ontario Fire Marshal's office and Solicitor General. That meeting lasted about an hour, and that's all they've said since.
Okay, any questions from members of council? Yes, Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. So, as a small rural municipality, we recognize that the best system for training our firefighters has been the facilitator trainer system that was put in place, some 20 years ago, because it engages our volunteer firefighters as facilitator trainers to train our other volunteer firefighters. They work with their own equipment. They get to know their own community. They learn a curriculum together. They build a sense of team spirit and an ability to work together through the process we currently have in place that trains all our volunteer firefighters. It's done in-house. This makes sense. To not provide municipalities with the end goal and start to change things without knowing what the end goal is seems a bit of an odd way to approach something. We're having these discussions and we have these concerns, but we don't know if in the end the province is going to say all firefighters must be, okay, let's use the word qualified as opposed to certified, but what does that mean? Does it mean that they have to, in effect, have the same number of courses as were suggested, actually as were required under certification? Does it mean one less course? We don't even know. We don't know what the end goal is in terms of what the expectation of the province is for a volunteer firefighter and what level of training they expect them to have when this transition from the Ontario Fire College to another system is complete. It's very difficult to speak to whether or not it is a good thing to keep the Ontario Fire College when you don't know what the end goal is. Again, we have gone to the minister, we have spoken to the ministry when firefighter service certification was a requirement about why this was a challenge for small rural municipalities and the impact it was going to have on our volunteers, our ability to keep them and to recruit new ones. it's going to take an awful lot of time to achieve that level of training. So since we don't even know what level of training is going to be expected, I still find it very difficult to know whether it is, whether or not to throw all of my weight behind keep the Ontario Fire College open, when I know full well that if the level of training that is required is similar to firefighter certification, we can't afford it. We figured this out already. At the same time, this diffusion of training to regional training centers seems to be all up in the air. There's no real clear understanding of how many courses would a firefighter have to take? How long would they have to spend in training? What are we going to be asking of our volunteers? So it's really hard to say, well, regional training centers would be better. We have some numbers that I don't know how anybody can truly back them up, because we don't even know how close the regional training center will be. So we have some numbers here, but we don't know how realistic they are. If a regional training center is within an hour and a half's travel, I got to tell you, council, I travel an hour and a half to go to county council meetings. So that's not a need to expend money on an overnight stay. That's a training day. It's doable. Drive to the training, do the training, and drive home. There will be some costs, but not to the same extent as someone having to take time off work or use their vacation time to go away to the Ontario Fire College to take a course that's going to take maybe a week, right? So we don't know enough. The only thing we know is that the system we have in place now works for us. So, I mean, I don't want to support either of these decisions. To me, it makes sense to have an Ontario Fire College for professional firefighters. They need somewhere to go to learn their craft. But what we do now with our volunteers works for us. It works in our community. We make sure that everyone has the training they need to perform their role as a volunteer firefighter. And I don't understand what we're being asked to change, because they haven't told us that. So I don't want to support any of this. I do want to know from the provincial government, what's the final outcome? What's their expectation? What level of training are they telling us we need to have, since they don't seem to think what we're doing is sufficient? So I think that's a question that needs to be posed to the government. What are you trying to do? What's your goal? Until I know what the goal is, I'm really hard pressed to figure out what the best path forward is. And that leaves me not wanting to touch any of this until I know what the province intends to do, how they intend to change our training, and what their expectations are. Because that's a discussion we need to have to make sure it's doable. I'm very frustrated, as you can tell, but I'll leave it at that.
It's not an easy situation, and thank you for your efforts. And I think that we need to put the pressure on, and I think the fact that there's probably strength in numbers with the Fire Chiefs Association, if they can put. However, I do have some questions, Corey. In your report, you mentioned that what the fire chiefs would like to see happen, but you also mentioned here that it's up to each individual municipality to decide what level of core services they want to provide. And I know we don't do things like ice rescue and all of that stuff. However, and you go on to mention that, I'd like to know what's the difference between qualified and not certified, because you mentioned that as well, is that as being an option. And I'm not so sure that perhaps they mean the same thing, but maybe you can explain that.
The way we were explained that, Councillor Chair Poplinski, was qualified means you've done your basic training, you've had a trainer sign off on it, but you're not getting the gold stamp from the province to say you're a certified firefighter. There's no proctors come in and do an actual written test or a physical test. It's done internally. Like you said, like the mayor has said, they're trained the trainer. It's similar to that. A qualified or certified firefighter will actually have a stamp and a diploma from the Ontario Fire College saying they attended a training college or a training center, and there's been a proctor has went through written part of it. They did a written test. They've done the physical test, and they are now qualified. There's the difference. The other part, the training still.
I'm just going to ask, Mayor Love, and I'm going to come back to you if I may.
Yep.
I just want to follow up on that, my question. And so in the number of firemen we have, fire people, would we have that are qualified and how many are certified?
We have 31 that are actually qualified through the grandfathering and that went through the fire college. We have 4 that are what you consider certified.
Okay, so if we had 4 certified people, and when we talk on further about this and doing training online and so on, would those certified people then be necessary to supervise the online training? Because that would be an absolute, you'd think would be an absolute must, wouldn't you?
They'd have to go to, they want to train, they have to be certified then. They have to go to a college or real training center, be certified to train the trainer and come back with that stamp.
Okay, Mayor Love, would you like to, sorry.
No, you're actually seeking the clarification I'm trying to get here, because if we're looking at firefighters, volunteer firefighters having to be qualified, they're qualified based on that concept. Yes. So we don't need a regional training center for those firefighters who are qualified. If our facilitator trainer individual firefighters, the ones who teach the others, the trainer that trains everyone else, if they need to be certified, well, then we're talking about significantly fewer firefighters to certify. We're not looking at certifying the entire complement. We're looking at certifying a few trainers. That's potentially far more affordable than certifying the entire fire department. Again, I think we need clarification from the province. If they're willing to accept the qualifications of our firefighters, that's fantastic. And that's, that acknowledges all the time and effort and experience that they have. If all they're asking is that we get our trainers certified, then yes, it will be an additional cost, but it is not an egregious cost if the trainers are willing to go to the fire college. You see, it changes the approach, obviously. So we need to know, again, from the province, what's your expectation? Because clearly, without knowing that, it's difficult to decide whether we are in support of continuing a central fire college or whether we would prefer to see training come to our firefighters, which I think is what we were looking for, was the training to come to us if every firefighter had to receive the exact same level of training. And that was what we were told firefighter certification meant. And in that case, it has to come to us, because we can't ask these volunteers to give up this much of their life to get this training. You're asking a lot in the first couple of years. They would be giving up all their vacation time in order to do it. So based on what we were told before. So again, clarification is needed. What is the ask here?
Any other comments from members of the committee, council? Mark, did you have your hand up there? Sorry, I thought I saw.
I didn't. I just want to say, no, I do agree with the mayor on. I think we need clarification on what's going on, and I really do agree with everything she says. As far as, I don't think we can make a decision. I don't support either time until I have more information. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else? Is we need to keep the pressure on and get some clarification, because we don't know the rules of the game. And, we got budget coming up. Is it going to affect this coming year? Should we be putting more money aside for our training? We should probably do that if we can. Okay, well, I'm prepared to consider a motion to. I mean, we've already done this, and we're trying to do it through the fire chiefs and so on. But can we do something from council? I'm sure many of the other small municipalities are having the same issues. Yes, Mayor Love?
So Chair, I know that our next opportunity to do a delegation to the province and directly ask these questions, what's your expectation? Because that's what we're asking here.
Yes.
What's your expectation? What is it you're trying to ensure happens? Our next opportunity to go and directly ask that is at the AMO conference. So perhaps we should be considering that, because sometimes when you sit down in front of them and just ask the question, you might get a clarification. We can write a letter, we can send out a resolution, we can do all those other things, but in the end, often you really don't get anything back that makes any sense. So perhaps we need to do a delegation at the AMO conference to the ministry and put forward to them our confusion about what their end goal is and our desire to understand it better, so that they can recognize this and then
So do you need
respond.
this commit? Do you need this committee to do something right now in order for that to facilitate that, or is that something you can do from in your capacity as mayor?
I'd like the support of council to book
Yes.
that delegation. I
Okay.
think it's important that
Okay.
council recognizes the delegations that
Yeah.
we are attempting to do and how we're trying to represent this municipality and speak directly to the government. So if council is prepared to support us doing that delegation, I think the CAO clerk and I will, when the time comes, we will submit a request if we haven't received any clarification before then.
Okay.
Okay.
Certainly, we're certainly open for a resolution for that to continue or to happen. So I'm certainly prepared to make the motion that we do proceed in that fashion. And if there's somebody else that would like to second that motion, don't see any. Oh yes, Councillor Wilmer, are you seconding the motion? Thank you. Any further comment or questions? I'll have your yes, Madam CAO.
Just clarification to ensure. So I have you, Councillor Poplinski, as a mover, and Councillor, is it Wilmer as seconder? Just to be clear, is it that a delegation be requested to speak to the ministry at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario on behalf of Madawaska Valley Township?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no comments? Sure. Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion is granted. So can you proceed with that, Chief? And anything else, if you keep us appraised, if you're getting anything back, please do in a timely fashion, and we'll just keep the pressure on. And I'm sure everybody else is in the same situation. So in the meantime, just do what you're doing. Thank you. Okay, so if we could continue with the agenda and pages 79 to 88 in your package. It's 8.14, and that's the fireworks bylaw.
All right, I'll speak to this. The fireworks issue has been brought up to the table several times, with council providing mixed opinions on whether we should enforce a fireworks bylaw within the township. Before implementing a fireworks bylaw, council should consider that the bylaw will need to be enforced, and it'll expand on our bylaw enforcement budget and become time consuming for both staff, both by taking calls and tracking down infractions. Council should consider that all complaints will be received late in the evening, and by the time staff arrive on scene, the fireworks may be over. It'll take time to investigate and prove the contravention of the bylaw. Township demographics have been changing over the years, and we have seen an increase in visitors and short-term rentals. We've viewed the cottage country. We are viewed as the cottage country, where people come to relax, enjoy enjoy rural scenery. Last summer, with restrictions of COVID-19 and placed the minimal recreation activities to do, fireworks were a form of entertainment more than ever. Staff discussed the pros and cons of both having fireworks bylaw and implementing it, licensing permits, use, or staying status quo. Regardless of which option the council decides to do, we're unable to appease all of our residents and visitors. Staff would like council to consider postponing fireworks bylaw for 2021 and consider an education blitz on the fireworks. Messaging that could present would emphasize that noise bylaw, fire restriction notices, give consideration to your neighbors and animals, environmental effects of fireworks, may have a safe handling and disposal of them. There may be costs involved with the messaging, but it may be less than the impact on the budget of enforcing the bylaw. The council decides to go ahead with the fireworks bylaw. We have included the draft bylaw for approval. The draft has removed fireworks restrictions on sales and licenses and permits.
Okay, thanks, Chief. I'm just wondering if we could, I know this report was submitted by our deputy clerk, and just wondering if she would like to comment on anything further on that report.
I think the report is self-explanatory. Oh, you can't hear me?
I don't hear you at all, no. Just wondering if we lost our sound totally, or am I still coming through?
Yes, Councillor
Okay, I can
Poplinski,
hear,
we can
hear
hear
Yes,
you.
you
the
are.
CAO. I didn't hear any response from the deputy clerk.
It was very faint.
Okay,
Maybe Gwen, if you try again. It's showing that you're muted.
Good.
there's obviously some technical issues there. Maybe I can go to members of council. Any comments on this report? Yes, Councillor Bromwich, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Poplinski. I would kind of agree with what's suggested here, that we concentrate more on education at this point in time. We're hopefully coming out of a really down period of being locked up, and when people start coming back to their cottages, I think they'll be a little exuberant, might be even overdoing the fireworks this summer. And I think education would be more of an impact than telling people that we're going to fine the heck out of them and put them back in jail. I would like to see possibly a more positive approach taken. And as Chief Quaid says, maybe the education portion of it should be emphasized, just like we do with fire safety. We have the ability to do that in social media and in the newspapers right now. So I think we have to help people have fun, but as long as they don't abuse it. I know there's going to be a few that do, but our cottage system up here is, it's going to be strained to the ultimate, I think, this summer. Thank you.
Okay, I see Gwen on the screen here. Gwen, I don't know whether you heard me, but I just asked if you wanted to elaborate at all on the report, because I know you were very instrumental in having that on the agenda.
Can you hear me now, first of all?
A little better.
Okay, just had to change devices. So no, I think that to Miroslaw's point earlier in the agenda, where our resources are pretty thin in regards to bylaw, it would be hard to enforce this effectively because the calls will be coming in late on night on weekends, and it would be, I think Chief Quad would be working 7 days a week. And we also have to keep in mind that we're still deep into COVID, and I don't think that'll change anytime over the summer, this summer anyways. As well as there is also, they now are enforcing the Tenant Act, which is causing more time for Chief Quad to be out and about. So I'm thinking that we could do an enforcement blitz asking for respect from our population in general, time of the evening that fireworks are let off and the time of the weekends, and just on how it's being disposed and displayed, and acknowledging that their neighbors may be still working even though that they may be on vacation. So just ask for council's consideration in this for this year anyways, and we could revisit it after if we receive any complaints or acknowledge what the concerns are of the residents are.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from other committee members? Yes, Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Chair. I just, again, I guess I'm one of the ones that really sort of pushed for this bylaw to sort of be brought forward. And I think the work is very worthwhile and well done. But I too agree with the staff report. I think I've always said in all my time on council that I don't believe in putting bylaws forward if we can't. And we have a bylaw officer, and as the deputy clerk just said, a lot of these are going to be at night. There's nobody going to be around, so we'll have a bylaw in place that we really can't enforce properly. But I think the idea of trying for a year to educate people and to take a positive approach is a good way to look at it, and let's see if that works. I think it could be big. We don't know what's going to happen this summer, but I think trying to take the positive approach, use our noise control bylaw and our firework restrictions, and let's see if we can educate to make this situation better. But as I say, I think doing the work on the bylaw is good. We've got it ready if necessary, but I still have a problem with having a bylaw that we really couldn't enforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmer. And now, Mayor Love, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to build on what Councillor Wilmer said. I'm wondering if we could look at our noise bylaw and insert into it a line as it relates to fireworks, where we would indicate that fireworks could be let off from dusk or sunset to 11 p.m. I suggest 11 p.m. because as the discussion that we've been having here has noted, there are a lot of people who are going to want to come to their cottage. They are on holiday or on vacation, but their neighbors may be working the next day. So I'm wondering if we could try that and an education program around that is about being respectful to your neighbors. But there needs to be something that we're basing that education program on. And I think limiting fireworks to, and I'm picking 11 p.m. because most people by then, if you're working the next day, you may want to go to bed and not be interrupted. But our noise bylaw allows the noise until 1 a.m. And that's significantly past when the average person would want to be awakened by fireworks. So is it something council would consider to just make an addition to the noise bylaw where specifically as it relates to fireworks, we would just restrict, put a time on it after which it's not acceptable, and let's educate, because that's a reasonable approach to blending the desire of someone who's here to celebrate being here with the reality of people who are here who have to work the next day. So I just would propose that as an option at this point, and then lots of education around that. It kind of gets us started in a direction, gives us something.
Good, thank you so much. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Schulz.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. Listen, I think it's about education. I know we brought this to the table because of the safety factor. We were all concerned about, maybe fires. We're surrounded with forests and so on. I think this is where this whole discussion came about. I think we, once you start doing the bylaws, yes, to enforce it, much tougher for sure. But I think good education, maybe some kind of guideline. The noise, I don't know. I think the 1 o'clock is good. People come here for the fun, but I think if they keep it in with the idea of having fun with it, and if somebody has a celebration at 1 o'clock or before that, I just don't see a problem, because it doesn't happen every night. So I know we're a fun community, and I don't know if we have to put too many restrictions, but at the same time, for me, it's all about safety and the fire factor and stuff. But I think the fire chief can put some guidelines in to make it safe and just educate everyone. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mayor Love, please.
I think that the fact that it isn't just, it used to just be that people did fireworks on the weekend. It isn't just that anymore. You know, yes, we are a place that wants to promote fun, but the reality is we're also a community that's mixed between those who are coming here for fun and those who actually live here. And that's why I'm suggesting that, you know, 11 o'clock at night is a reasonable hour. You have from sunset to 11. If you've got that many fireworks to let off and you're still not done by 11 o'clock at night, you've got a huge investment in fireworks. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that a person would be done by, and if council thinks 11:30 or even midnight, but 1 a.m., most people have long since tried to go to bed, and they got to get up in the morning, and they have kids, and you know, we are a mixed community, and I just would like to recognize that. We're not just talking about on the weekends, we're talking about people who are letting them off on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, and in some cases every night for 3 or 4 nights in a row. So there needs to be something that acknowledges the fact that the community has people of different, you know, with different needs and different requirements in terms of how they, whether they live here or they're visiting here. And I think this is an easy way to do it. Just put a line in the noise bylaw that says that they're not allowed after a certain time at night. I don't care. I chose 11 p.m. It could be 11:30, it could be 12, but I wouldn't let it go till 1. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I want to make some comments, and I think the noise bylaw is the place to have it included. I would be all in favor of 11 o'clock, and I say that because within a very short distance of where I live here, there's some folks from the city that have come up and decided that they're going to do a whole lot of shooting, and they do it in all hours of the day and night. And I would love to see it. They have these exploding targets. And I don't know if you've ever been exposed to this sort of stuff. And I'm a hunter. I've been around guns all my life. However, this is something that just cannot continue. The police have been here on many occasions trying to close it down. So I really do think that our bylaw needs to address not just the noise from the fireworks, but other things such as this. This is unacceptable. And so I think we can do it. I think we can do it without enforcing the sale of fireworks and so on. Let's try this. Let's try the education thing. I think it's a great idea. And I think we're going to be doing more of this, dealing with the boating and all of the various things. We have means of putting up notices on our internet, in the local newspaper, our areas of public congregation, whether it's at the docks or the various other municipal buildings or whatever. And I think we can educate the people. However, I would just ask the fire chief to be vigilant, and if he's involved in situations that he needs some attention by council, then feel free to come and talk to us about it. But I would love to see this move ahead and move ahead soon. So hopefully the noise bylaw will be something that I know we're not going to get into it in great detail at the moment, but the fact that we're trying to add it all together, I think is a very good way of doing it. And so thank you. And any other comments? I thought I saw Mark's hand up there, and actually Amanda, yes, please feel free.
So I just wanted to address a comment that you made from my personal experience. You had discussed within the noise bylaw about addressing the exploding targets. And
yes,
I actually had an experience in my neighborhood with the exploding targets, and that was regulated by the OPP. They handled that for me. It's covered under some other legislation, but that was handled by the OPP for me. So I understand your frustration with that, because those are very, very loud.
But it's not just the exploding targets, just firearms going off, shotgun shooting. They're doing it, not just the targets, like the exploding targets. That's part of it. And it's pretty disturbing when you hear that at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I think it is something we need to do a little work on, and look forward to be coming up with something that's going to try and appease everybody. Any other comments from anyone? Yes, Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, I would just like to propose that we accept the council's or the staff recommendation or consideration, and that we look at amending the noise bylaw to include fireworks, and perhaps we need to include the exploding targets, but putting an 11 o'clock time in there instead of 1, I think would be very helpful.
Yes, Madam CAO.
Just need clarification if we're also addressing the days of the week, or if we're just going to be addressing the noise bylaw. I'm okay with that. Just wanted to seek clarification. It's okay 7 days a week as long as it's by 11? That's my understanding of what I'm hearing. Okay, just want to clarify.
Fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? So if we can leave it to staff then to come back with
Okay.
A new noise bylaw, and we'll proceed with coming up with some ways of educating the public. And we still have Gwen on there, I see. So you're in charge of the internet publications, and perhaps anything in the newspaper, anything that we can do in that regard, and other printed material which could be distributed throughout the township would be very helpful as well. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any, so maybe we can move on to pages 89 to 118 in the package 8.15 emergency management update. And once again, Gwen, you're on the report here, so you would like to speak to this?
So the emergency management department has been extremely busy. I think Kim and the CAO and Councillor, Corey can attest to the last week due to messaging and trying to get a positive response from the township out. Can you hear me now, Ernie? I see you struggling.
I'm having some difficulty.
Okay. So Corey and myself sit on the distribution group, and we've been meeting bi-weekly right now to figure out the rollout for the vaccines. We met yesterday, Sue and myself met yesterday at the arena with the vaccination group about the arena, and following this will be a letter from Dr. Jason Malinowski in regards to the request for the arena as a vaccine location. Also in my report, it refers to the spring freshet, so that we're already on top of that, where meetings are starting to happen. Included in the report, which I had to pull off, was an OPG presentation that Mayor Love and I sat through. It is not for public distribution. However, I contacted OPG yesterday, and they are setting up a public presentation, which is tentatively scheduled for March 23rd, and we'll be sending out the messaging for that. So for the public, they will be able to attend this meeting and get the information that was presented earlier to us. I think that was all for my report.
Okay. Any comments or questions by members of the committee? Okay, so we'll look forward to that meeting on the 23rd. I'm sure it's going to be very informative. We've got in our amended amendments here, we've got the addition of 8.17, and it's regarding the COVID vaccination. And I'm not sure who, and I think CAO is going to speak on that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just read the correspondence that we received this morning. I did forward it to Council just prior to the meeting starting. Mayor Love, following discussion with you and your township staff, we would like to request the ability to use the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center for our COVID immunization plan this year. As you may know, the plans for COVID immunization are very fluid and a lot depends on vaccine availability. Hopefully, you have read that the residents of Valley Manor have had their vaccines. Today, healthcare staff are beginning to get their vaccine at the hospital and Valley Manor. There are many options for immunizing our target populations, but as they get more numerous, we are going to need larger venues. We had a very productive meeting with township staff, and the PJYCC would be a good fit for our larger scale vaccine rollout. Due to the uncertain timing of vaccine delivery, we may need to use the arena for immunizations quite soon. Unfortunately, we cannot give you a target date, but it might be within the next month. We anticipate that the immunization timing should not stretch far past the summer, so as not to interfere with the ice installation in September. But again, we are at the behest of the MOH, Ministry of Health, schedule for vaccine delivery. The Renfrew County District Health Unit website has many resources to answer questions about vaccines and the provincial prioritization schedule. We are available to answer questions as well. Thank you for considering this request, which reflects most likely the largest public health initiative that we will see in our lifetimes. Here's hoping. Sincerely yours, Jason Malinowski and Susan Farrar, who sit on the local planning. They are part of the team that is local planning leads for COVID vaccination. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Madam CAO. Any comments questions from members of committee? Yes, Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, we've been working hard as a council, thinking in terms of our responsibilities about the needs of our arena and the renovation work that needs to be done there. But at the same time, we have to recognize that the arena isn't going to be of much use to anyone if we're not vaccinated. And the last thing that I wanted to see happen was for us to make a decision and start to commit funds towards a renovation project, only to then sort of get out of our area of responsibility and recognize that there's another need in our community that we have to look at. And that was the question of whether or not our arena would be needed as a vaccination distribution center, basically. So it was staff was working hard to try to connect with whomever was going to be responsible for vaccine distribution in our area. But it was very difficult to make a connection because we didn't have a lot of information to go on. Once we did start to get some information, I know Gwen and Chief Quad did attend some meetings, but and did say to them, hey, look, we're looking at doing this renovation, so we just need you to be aware, and we need to know whether or not this is going to be an issue. Further to that, I did connect with Dr. Malinowski and Susan Farrar because I wanted to be certain that if council was going to continue to work hard towards a renovation, that it wasn't going to be at odds with the needs of our community in terms of looking after the health of our community and ensuring that we can be vaccinated. So that's why this got set up, to make certain that if it was going to be needed, we knew about it as a council and a request would come to us promptly so that we could look at what we're doing as we go into this next budget period and make adjustments in order to ensure that the health of our community is addressed first and foremost. So we needed to get some answers. I think we did get some. We now have a request. It has been recognized that it would be the best site to do vaccinations, especially as we get into phase 3. At the moment, they're still in phase, sort of a bit of phase 1, moving into phase 2. I do get to regularly attend calls with the province, with General Hillier, with Premier Ford, where they update mayors on vaccine distribution and the situation as they see it and as it's rolling out. At times I get a bit more information from those calls. Often it's more what I've already heard through other media and other means. The things I have learned is that they are very much counting on municipalities as partners to assist with this process. And the province and the health units recognize strongly that it's very difficult because they can't say to us, we need your facility from March the 15th to June the 30th, right? They can't tell us. They don't know. They are addressing the vaccines as they come in, as they get their hands on them, and trying to use them to the best of their ability. So we do have a big challenge with knowing exactly when the arena would be needed, or if, and initially if. And I think that it is good to know that, yes, if it's going to be needed, we now know that they are requesting it. We can adjust what we're doing as a council, but recognize that nobody has solid information. We are all working based on what the latest data is, and that's changing and shifting daily. So we're trying to keep council in the loop, keep the community in the loop, and make sure that we're making good decisions. But at this point, we do have to recognize that there is this health need in our community. We do need to have a site where people can safely be vaccinated. We have a lot of seniors in our community. We want to make sure that they have the physical distancing they need to be able to come be vaccinated and not, accidentally cause community spread. And I think that's the challenge that the local planning leads have recognized. It does require a bigger facility, especially as we get into vaccinating the general population. So I'm really glad that they have met with staff, gone and looked at the arena, and have provided us with this request, because now council can look at this request, determine whether or not this is something we want to honor and make sure that it happens, and then adjust our thinking in terms of what we're planning to do so that we can work with public health to ensure that our community is kept healthy. And then we will move on to ensuring we have a great recreational facility for everyone to use once they're able to use it, once we can come together. So, there's been a lot of work in the background here by Gwen, by the chief, by Sue, phone call by myself to Dr. Malinowski and Susan Farrar, but we wanted to make sure that you had all the information and everyone was aware of timelines as best we can provide them. Again, it's going to be a day-to-day, week-to-week situation. When the vaccines come, we want to get them into arms as soon as possible. So that's just, I did provide you with an update on the weekend and some information we've received. So at this point, it is a decision of council whether or not to provide the arena to the team for vaccinations in our community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I totally agree. I think we need to cooperate and encourage people to get involved and help out. And I think that one of the things we realize that would probably be more on one occasion because of the first and second dosage. I don't know what sort of time they're experiencing. In some cases, I think it's weeks. It could be in other places where there's been a little longer period. I don't know what to expect, but we know that it would be. So if there's any consideration of the building being rented, then of course that would come into play. And I'm sure our staff would be interested in knowing, with as much notice as possible, for the possible rentals and so on. I'm just wondering, is there anybody else would like to comment on this? You got your hand up there, anybody? Mark, yes, please proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I appreciate the work Mayor Love and staff put into getting this letter from Dr. Malinowski, because I think that was one of the hard things that in making any decisions, I think everyone recognizes that health has to come first, but without knowing for sure if the arena was going to be needed, we were sort of stuck in a sort of difficult position. But now that we know that, I think there's no debate as to what we need to do. We can always fix the arena later. But I also think too that even though things are fluid with the schedule of COVID vaccine delivery, we do know for sure that during the summer, the vaccines are going to get out. It may be end of March, or maybe April, who knows? But during the summer, the arena is going to be needed. So I'm very, again, I thank staff and the mayor for doing the work to getting the letter. And I think for me, it's an absolute, we have to support this, and health comes first in the community.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilmer. Yes, Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you, Chair. There's two directions we can go here, and I think to eliminate any kind of anxiety on behalf of council and staff here with regards to the work that we've anticipated to do in the arena floor, we could put this off until next year and make this arena basically free of that decision making until possibly 2022. That would give us more time to get the tenders out. We could still make ice September, October. We did have good ice up till February here, and we're looking at the games coming in at the beginning of next year in March. We could have the arena ready for the games without the floor being ripped up yet. I think we've got a good year yet of life left in the arena, so we could take that off the table and allow the vaccination problem to be focused. I mean, this is priority. We have to help the people in this township get healthy again, and we have to provide a facility that will take massive amounts of people a very quick time to get through it. So my suggestion would be to eliminate the fixing of the arena this year, put it on to next year's agenda, and let the Renfrew County Health Unit use our arena up to the maximum time they need it. That's just my thought. It would clear the area. Don't have to worry about what date are we going to do the floor. Are we going to cancel the hockey season for next winter? So, that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bromwich. I think we're all on the same page on that. Gwen, did you have your hand up there? I saw you going like that. So were you wishing to comment?
No, the only thing that I would add, and I'm not sure if this correspondence has been acknowledged by council, is that they anticipate 350 people per day, with a total of being about 12,000 people coming through the arena to get the vaccination. So it is important to use a large venue such as the arena.
Okay, that's a very good point. Any other comments? Okay, so if we, yes, Councillor Wilmer.
Well, I think also the other positive out of this is, and with Gwen mentioning there'd be 12,000 people going through, I think it really shows to, if there are any naysayers looking at why are we spending the money on fixing the arena, this type of project would not be possible without having a facility like this. And it really demonstrates, and it will give everyone a chance to have two visits into the arena, whether they've used it in the past or not. So I think, it really does show the importance of having a community center to the arena.
Very good point. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so does staff need any direction at this point then? Yes, Madam CAO.
I'd like to propose a resolution for consideration through the chair, that council approves the request received from representatives of the local planning leads for the COVID vaccination group and confirm the availability of the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center for use as a COVID vaccination center as requested. And that council further confirms the availability of the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center for the 2022 Winter Games.
Okay, that's good. Can I have somebody move? Yes, Mayor Love. And we have Councillor Bromwich second. Any further comments or questions? Having seen none, all in favor? Resolution's passed. Thank you. I believe that takes us into correspondence and information. And we've got pages 121 to 123 in your package. And there's an email from Chris McConnell, president of OPSU, regarding the Saving the Ontario Fire College. Not going to sit here and read it, but I'm sure everyone has. Is there any action that you would like the committee like to take on this? I'm not seeing any comment. Yes, Councillor Bromwich.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would support their draft motion that they've produced here. I would be welcoming support from council if they want to support this draft motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a seconder? So I'll second the motion. Any further comment, questions? Yes, Mayor Love?
Thank you, Chair. At this point, I'm not prepared to support this resolution because I want more information, quite
Okay.
frankly. I want to know what the expectation is of the province. Clearly, as I've spoken at length about, if we are headed towards an equivalency of firefighter certification for all our volunteer firefighters, then this becomes an issue of expense to this municipality. Whereas if we're headed for something subtly different, as we discussed previously, then perhaps this is something that I would be inclined to support then. But I need that clarification, and that's
Yeah,
why I don't want to support this at this
I
point
totally
in time.
understand. It certainly doesn't address the bigger implications for our little township. So, okay, so yes, Councillor Schulist?
Yes, to you, Chair Popinski. Yeah, I've got a hard time right now to support it. I'd like to ask maybe our chief, what does he think the importance of this college? I know you went through a lot of this stuff here, but do you feel the same way as Mayor Love does? Because that's kind of where I'm leaning to. But Chief?
Yes, Councillor Schulz, the big problem is, like I said, and I agree with Mayor Love, we can't get a straight answer on which direction the province wants us to go. That's the hard thing. You need to provide council with information that gives us proper direction. Do you want us to certify which way you're looking at it? And when the fire marshal won't tell us, or the solicitor general, it gets very frustrating. It's very hard. Because I can't even plan for budgeting or staff-wise recruiting. That's what I'm saying. It's up here. It's a hard thing right now. So I agree with both of you. It is one of the most frustrating things I've dealt with since I started here, or even in the fire service. I mean, in fire service 32 years, and we've never had such a lack of communication from the province whatsoever, or direction. So I agree with both of you 100%.
Okay, thank you very much for that opinion. And yeah, I just can't support it right now. I think we need to have something come back to our table, and then maybe we can make a decision on it. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Brown. Wilmer, would you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think this is something that maybe we'll come back to, but I think our fairly lengthy discussion sort of put this forward, really it goes sort of in the opposite direction from the discussion we had where we said we would have a delegation going forward. And I'd rather get that information first before we support something like this.
Okay. I second the motion merely for discussion, and but I see there's, it's the motion is not going to pass. So do you still want to vote on it? I mean, it's been made, so we can certainly do that. We should. So all in favor? Okay, motion's lost. So I think that's the way to proceed, and it is a big concern. For those that are asking us to support it, but that would not address the bigger implications for us. So let's deal with the other manner in which we've decided to petition the government. So, okay. So we've got pages 125, and it's a letter 8.22 from Mr. Williamson regarding the fireworks. I'd like to receive that, if it's okay with committee, as information. And we've already dealt with the matter, I feel, unless there's somebody wants to comment. Okay, not seeing any. We'll deal with item 8.23, and it's pages 127 to 128 in your package. And it's a letter from Dr. Malinowski. And I believe also that we've dealt with the additional letter which we received, and we dealt with it at 8.17. If everybody agrees with that, then we'll move on to 8.24. It's a letter from the Ministry of the Solicitor General regarding the surge capacity roster for the Provincial Emergency Operations Center, pages 129 to 131 in your package. Anyone wish to comment on that? They're looking for members of a committee, is it? Okay, I don't see any comments on it. I don't think it's something that we can just table at the moment. I think it's something we do need to deal with. Does everyone have that letter in front of them? Okay. I would ask the CAO to address the issue.
You address to nominate someone from our organization to be a part of that? Is that what?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure of who all is involved with all of this emergency planning.
Okay.
There's stuff going on. I'm not privy to it, so I only see certain reports that come down. So for me to suggest something, and if it's not consistent with what's going on at the moment, so perhaps you could address it from that point of view.
Sure. I didn't see any recommendation from the fire chief, and within the correspondence, it is clear that they'd have to complete some of the following courses, which is like courses from the POC, which is your EM 200 and 300. So we didn't have anyone that we were planning on participating in this initiative.
Yes, Mayor Love, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think they're looking for us to volunteer a member of staff.
Yes.
And their requirements are fairly significant, and I don't think we have anyone who meets the requirements. So this is probably something that a much larger municipality might have a person on staff who had all these courses to work with the PEOC. But at this point, I think I just accept it as information.
Okay.
Because we may have a staff person who's interested, but they're also indispensable.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we, it's sometimes it's nice to have a dog in the game, and if if it is something that we could benefit from, I'm wondering, do we have enough information? That would be one of my, from the lack of comments from committee, it suggests to me that there's, we don't have a lot of information here. And I'm wondering whether we should try and get better clarification as to what they're really looking for. Yes, Madam CEO?
Sorry, I can follow up with that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. That would be good. If that's okay with committee. Okay. So I had no unfinished business on my slate here. So if that's all, I'll pass the gavel back to the mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. I started to have a coughing fit. Okay, so everyone, it's 12:31 and we would probably like to have a break for lunch.
Yes, please.
But I recommend that we take, 29 minutes and we come back at 1 o'clock. Could I get someone move that we would take a lunch break until 1 o'clock? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we'll come back at 1 o'clock and we'll start with Recreation and Community Development Committee. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, my internet